Hello everyone and welcome to this video. Now today I'm going to be doing an album ranking video on one of my favourite slightly more modern bands, which is Field Music. They're a really great underrated duo from Sunderland, like in the northeast of England. They make some really interesting creative music, not flashy but kind of like, I guess you could probably call it art rock, I guess. Similar kind of vibes I guess to stuff like 10cc, like I hear a lot of like 10cc like in Field Music, but then also got a kind of slight kind of post-punk edginess to them as well, like sort of like similar styles like XTC like in some ways, but also kind of Talking Heads in there as well. So a really interesting amalgamation like of a lot of like my favourite like sort of sounds and styles of like music, but like they're always putting like their own like kind of like twist like on it. So yeah, like this year 2025 is their 20th anniversary of their first album, so I thought that it would be a good like opportunity here to do an album ranking of theirs. Now once you do actually sort of really delve deep into their discography, you do realise that they have put out a lot of music like since like their debut album like in 2005, like so you've got these core Field Music albums, but then each of the two brothers, Peter and David Brewis, have put out a variety of solo albums and various side projects and spin-off bands. I think there's a band called School of Language and The Week That Was like that come to mind. Like so it's quite a intimidating discography like in like some ways, like but like in this video I'm just like to keep things a bit more focused. I am just going to be looking at the core Field Music albums, of which there's 9, but to round it up to 10 I have decided to include a Record Store Day thing that came out like a couple of years ago, and I'm so like I said, like I'm not including like any of the side projects, and I'm also excluding a soundtrack that they made called Music for Drifters, simply because I've not got it and don't know it particularly well, and it's also all like instrumental soundtrack music. So anyway, without much further ado, we will just get straight into the list at number 10. So number 10 for me, I'm going for Making a New World here. This is their 2019 album here, and this is essentially a kind of, it's probably their most kind of proggy sort of album. It's a kind of concept album that they were commissioned to do by the Imperial War Museum, essentially kind of sort of I think it would have been to tie in with the centenary of the end like of the First World War, and it's this kind of album which is kind of about the First World War and its kind of aftermath, like and like its impact sort of thing. So it's got a very kind of conceptual, kind of cinematic like sort of like feel like to it. Now yeah, for me revisiting this, it was certainly better than I remembered it being. Like when it came out, like it was a bit of a disappointing album for me, but there's some really good tracks like sort of like scattered like throughout this album, tracks like Coffee and Wine and like Do You Read Me is like really good, like really like the backing vocals going on like in that song. And then there's other good tracks like sort of like towards the end, like Only in a Man's World concerns kind of like the sort of like the suffragette movement and like sort of like that as a kind of sort of impact like off like the war. And then Money is a Memory is kind of about the kind of repatriation sort of payments that kind of Germany like was required to make. Although I must say, like I'm not crazy about that song. Like that kind of chorus does, the chorus on that one does certainly grate like on me. But it's definitely an album, though, that you do really need to listen to all of the way through. Like, there's lots of kind of, 30 seconds, like, sort of, like, tracks, like, on here, like, which really don't kind of stand up, like, by themselves. But, like, as a whole album, like, makes for, like, quite, like, an interesting, like, listen here, though. So, yeah, Making a New World here will come in at number 10. Okay, now at number 9, I have got this album here, although it's not, I guess, officially considered an album. It's Field Music with the Nassawoot Riverside Band, and the album is called Binding Time. Now, this came out at Record Store Day last year, but I don't think it, like I said, I don't think like it's considered like a proper album because it's not on streaming services. It's not on their YouTube page like, at all, like or anything. It just seems like it was like a kind of like a one-off release, and like then like that was that. But this is a very, very, very good album. Essentially, the Naswork band, I think, are a brass band based in Durham, and essentially brass band music's very traditional music for the kind of like north of England, very kind of working class sort of connection to sort of like the miners and like that, and it gives, and that kind of brass band paired with field music makes for a very interesting kind of combination, and like sort of like a very different like instrumental texture compared to most of their other albums. There's some great quality songs like on here, particularly like the first side. I think it's the track off The Death of Blind Davy is a really great song. The way the tuba kind of works like on that track is just really, really good. I'd say the flaw with this album though is possibly because it's them with the brass band, the sound of it maybe is a bit one-dimensional, you know, because it's different for field music compared to the other albums, but by the time you get onto the second side of this album, the novelty has maybe slightly worn off like a little bit, but it's still a very good album, and it's one that I'm disappointed like isn't on streaming services and like isn't considered like a core part like of their discography, because it's a very, very, very good album here though. So that's Binding Time there from 2024. Okay, next up now at number 8, we've got their album from, I think it's 2017, it says on this one here, which is Open Here. Now, this one is another very, very good album here. Like, it's very difficult doing this video, like, in general, because, you know, like, it's quite hard to separate some of these albums out, but this is one that probably does fall kind of towards the kind of lower half, like, of, like, their discography for me. I just think it's a bit of a confusing album. There's some very good tracks on here, some tracks that explore a kind of more kind of chamber pop like sort of vibe. There's kind of flutes like all over like the album on tracks like Time and Joy, and then the kind of closing track like Find a Way to Keep Me. It's just absolutely glorious, great kind of string work like on it. But then there's other tracks like Checking on a Message and Share a Pillow, which are more kind of new wavy, like so Share a Pillow like especially like has a real kind of XTC kind of flavour to it like for me, but then other tracks have a more kind of political message. So the track and Count It Up like is a great song about just being kind of grateful for things like in like your life and sort of like I guess like appreciating the kind of sort of privilege, like so like the little things like that, the little things that you had like which like other people like might not have had like sort of thing. Like it's a really good song. But there's a few weaker tracks like on here, like no doubt for me. Like I'm not a big fan of the track Front of House. The main the title track like Open Here like I don't think like is great, and No King No Princess again is maybe verging on the annoying side like a little bit. So it's a mixed bag, this album for me, Open Here. Although like when it's good, like there's a couple like of highlights are definite like great songs, and like among highlights like in like field music's like discography. So by no means a bad album here. I'm wasting time, what good can I do? Okay, the next one up now at number 7 is possibly my most controversial placing on this list. I'm going for their 2012 album, Plum here. Now, this one was possibly one of the more acclaimed albums. This was nominated for the Mercury Prize, and it was probably the most kind of, I don't say famous field music got, but certainly like being nominated for the Mercury Prize like is quite a big deal, like in like kind of like the music business. But this is for me anyway, it's probably their most kind of schizophrenic album, their most kind of, I mean, they pack so much onto this record. If you just look at the track list there, it's only a single disc, but there's so many tracks like on this album, a lot of them very short, and they all kind of flow into one another, and it's one of these where the songs like on like an individual level might seem a bit lackluster, but kind of put together makes for like I said, like quite a rich and quite like an unpredictable album, which is truly brimming like with like ideas. I love particularly like the opening 3 songs, Start the Day Right, It's Okay to Change, and Sorry Again Mate, all just kind of run into one another, and it just feels like it's like one. It just feels like it's one like continuous song. And there's a couple like of other great tracks like on side 2, like Who Pay the Bills like is great, and then the final 2 tracks, Just Like Everyone Else and I Keep Thinking About a New Thing, are again highlights like off like their discography. For me, it's just kind of everything else again, like the middle like of the album just kind of lose me like a little bit, particularly kind of like the middle part like of like side 2. And like while it's a sophisticated underrated and kind of well done album that I think most people like who like know field music would certainly have this one like a lot higher. And like I do genuinely like this album. I maybe just don't have the same connection or fondness of it like as I do with some of the other albums that I've put slightly higher on the list. Okay, next up now at number 6, we've got their 2021 album, which is a Flat White Moon here. So this is a very strong record here, which really feels to me like a kind of the best of field music kind of thing. Like so, like all of the kind of various styles and kind of sounds. Like of theirs kind of put together like on like one album. So it's a really nice balance, I think, between more immediate and kind of melodic tracks, stuff like Do Me a Favour and Out of the Frame, and then the closing track and like You Get Better, like quite kind of poppy sort of like quite like accessible songs. But then there's some more proggy stuff as well, stuff like Orion from the Street and Meant to Be, and there's a couple more like acoustic tracks like as well like on here, I think like When You Last Heard from Linda, like in particular. So it's a strong record here though, like no doubt, like a really, really good album, but it's maybe one that is perhaps maybe lacking in, I guess, personality like a little bit. It doesn't have a kind of set sort of sound or style, and like as I said, like it's all the kind of best bits of field music kind of melded up like into like one album, which isn't necessarily like a bad thing. Like I'd say like it actually like is a good thing really, and it is just like yeah, I think for most other bands this would probably be like a kind of like a top 3 album, but it just shows the strength like of like their discography really. Okay, next up now at number 5 is one that I am surprised I've actually got like as high like as I've got, but when I was kind of preparing for this video, like listening to their music like a lot, this is an album that really took me by surprise actually. Like it is their debut album here, like self-titled field music from 2005. Now this is a great record. It's very kind of edgy and kind of angular sort of sound like on it, but with a more kind of straightforward sort of like instrumentation compared to like their sort of like later albums. It's got this kind of DIY kind of like indie like aesthetic to it, but it does still have field music's kind of uniqueness to it like as well. Tracks like If Only the Moon Were Up has got this very interesting kind of time signature changes on it, and there's some great vocal work like on here. Track Tell Me Keep Me has just got some incredible intricate kind of vocal harmonies on it, like as does the closing track and You're So Pretty, and like Got to Write a Letter like is like quite like energetic like as well. It maybe for me lacks the same kind of highlights that even say Flat White Moon has, but I'd say this is a more consistent album. It's a more consistently good album, and is a real highlight again like of like their discography. Okay, now at number 4 on my list, we have got their most recent album from September last year, which is Limits of Language here. Now this is I would say the definition like of like a grower like of an album. I guess that when it first came out, I was maybe just a bit lukewarm like on it, but certainly in the past couple of weeks, it has again been really, really, really grown on me. It's probably it was definitely a lot more kind of synthesizer heavy, this album, compared to like their previous albums, but it still has quite like an eclectic mix of kind of styles like on here, from the kind of dramatic and kind of proggy 6 Weeks, 9 Wells to the kind of rhythmic like kind of polyrhythms like off Guardian of Sleep, to then the moody Sounds About Right. I would say that the whole of side 1, like those like those songs plus Limits of Language and Absolutely Negative, is possibly their best and most consistent side of music. There's a few fillery tracks that kind of creep into side 2, some slightly less memorable stuff. Curfew in the Square like is quite a kind of short song that doesn't do a lot for me, but then there's other great stuff like Turn the Hours Away, The Waitress off St. Louis is really great like as well. And yeah, it's just an album for me that does kind of get better like kind of like every time I listen to it. So yeah, at number 4 there is Limits of Language from 2024. Why don't you get to bed like everybody else? Okay, so now we're into the top 3. Now, I would really say that these top 3 are almost completely like interchangeable. Really depends on what mood like what mood I'm in, but I've decided on this order and I'm relatively happy with it. So yeah, we'll get into it. At number 3, I've got their album Common Time here from 2016. Now, this was the first field music album that I heard after Rob Walker recommended, I believe it was just the song Disappointed, or it might have been this full album, like I can't remember, but he said go and listen to field music, and like sort of like pointing me in the direction of that song, and I absolutely loved it. I thought they were just absolutely fantastic. So this was, yeah, like my first album, like the first album of theirs like that I got, so there's kind of got that connection for me like as well. But I'd also say it is among their finest albums. Like it's got like, yeah, some of like their very best material on it, including tracks like The Noisy Days Are Over, which is a song that Prince like was taken with and kind of posted like on social media. So like shortly, it must have been maybe only about a year or so before like he died, like he kind of like posted a link to that song like on Twitter, and like they got like quite a kick like so like from that, and then it's also got Disappointed like on it as well, like as I said, like the track that I think could have been like a big radio hit, like they appeared on Jules Holland doing it, and it's a fantastic track. And I'd say the whole first half of this album is absolutely killer, probably up to, yeah, like They Want You to Remember. It's just absolutely fantastic. There's maybe a couple of side fillery tracks like on side 2, stuff like That's Close Enough for Now, and The Morning Is Waiting, are slightly more mellow kind of like acoustic tracks, and it's quite a long record this. I think there's 15 or so tracks like on there, so probably and it kind of runs to about like an hour like in length. So I think if they maybe chopped a little bit like off the fat like off this album, this probably would be their best album. I don't mean to sound tight. Okay, next up now at number 2 on my list, I'm going for the album Measure here from 2010. So this album is probably considered their artistic high point, like I'd say, like their masterpiece really. It's a sprawling double album. This is a proper double album here with some absolute highs like on it. Some of my absolute favourite field music tracks, particularly Them That Do Nothing and Effortlessly, are both absolutely fantastic. And I really love the sequencing of this album as well, because it starts off quite kind of poppy like and accessible, or slightly more like accessible like by field music standards, but then gets slightly more kind of sort of proggy and a bit more like experimental like as like it goes on, so it's quite a journey like this album. I suppose you maybe do need to be like in the mood for it a little bit, and it is quite a commitment to kind of properly sit down like and listen to Measure, but like it is a great record, brimming like with like creativity. It's maybe got a couple of tracks I'm not crazy about. I think the title track Measure I'm not crazy about, and Clear Waters, alright. It's just an average field music song for me. But it's definitely a record that I'd say is greater than the sum of its parts, really. So, Measure here would come in at number 2. Okay, but now we have got my number 1 field music album here. This is their second album here from 2007. It's the album Tones of Town here. Now, this is a great album here. It's a slightly more, you can kind of see their like artistic development like from like their first album. It's a bit more like slightly wider like instrumental palette like on like this album here, more like acoustic sort of like instrumentation, a bit more keyboard work as well from like their they were like originally like a 3-piece band with a keyboardist called Andrew Moore. Like he's like all over like this album, and I would really just pick out like the highlights on here are among my absolute favourite field music songs. So the opener, Give It, Lose It, Take It, is this kind of multi-piece track. It's just absolutely brilliant. You've then got like A House Is Not a Home, Closer at Hand, and the closing track She Can Do What She Wants should have been like a big like kind of like indie banger. It was used a bit in the In-Betweeners TV series, kind of comedy sort of series, and so like it's probably a song that maybe people like who've like watched that will kind of know like subconsciously, but it's just an absolutely fantastic song. Should be a lot more kind of popular like than it is. And I'd say why this probably comes out on top is because it is everything I like about field music. They kind of dialed down and kind of cemented like into like a really tight kind of single album. This is kind of like sort of like 35 kind of 40 minutes of album here. So while it maybe isn't quite as sprawling or like or like as ambitious as Common Time or Measure. I just think it's a bit more accessible. It's the album that I reach to from for theirs probably most often, and like at the same time like it's also quite like eclectic like as well. So no, yeah, Tones of Tan there by Field Music is my #1 album of theirs. So yes, I hope you have enjoyed this video going through my top 10 Field Music albums. So no, I hope you have enjoyed. If you're not familiar with Field Music, which I'd be surprised like if like you're not, like if like you made it like this far through the video, definitely like go check them out. They're absolutely fantastic, and yeah, can't wait to see sort of like what they do next, really, considering their last album was so good. So no, hope you have enjoyed the video, and I will see you all next time for the next one. Goodbye.